It was another quiet night at the office. No phone calls, no messages. Nothing but junk mail and overdue bills to keep me company. Seems nobody wants to hire a real private dick anymore. A professional like me. A guy who does the detective work nobody else wants to do. A guy who wears hats and walks around in a black and white world. I began contemplating a more profitable line of work, like politics.
All right, folks, good afternoon. Welcome to the Wednesday edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show on AM 830 WCRN. I am Joe Mangiacotti, and you can join the conversation for the next hour at 508-871-7000. That's 508-871-7000. Hey, don't forget our text line is running at 617-297-8388, 617-297-8388. Yes, of course, you can listen to the station on AM 830 WCRN, but you can stream it like other thousands of other radio stations do on the TuneIn app. That's right. Just go to the TuneIn app. If you don't have it, it literally takes seconds to download it. Punch in WCRN, hit our logo. Then you know where we are. We know you're there, and take us anywhere. Tell Alexa to play WCRN. She'll do that. No questions asked. Now, I do stream my show on the station's Facebook page, YouTube channel, as well as my social media platforms at Joe Mangi Show. So that's Facebook, X, Twitch TV, LinkedIn profile, and we do stream live to Rumble. So check it all out. The show is also turned into a podcast after I get off the air. I mean, not just on the station's replay link, but as an actual podcast wherever you get your podcast. So you can subscribe at Spotify or Podbean or wherever you get your podcast. Feel free to do that. All right, that takes care of some housekeeping. Sorry I wasn't with you yesterday, Election Day, certain places across the country, including in Worcester. And look, bottom line is on this, Republicans did not do very well at all, right, across. However, let's remember, we didn't do well in New Jersey. Republicans didn't do well in Virginia. California, Prop 50 passed. The thing is, they're very blue states. Republicans never do well there. So that's not surprising. It's not like they flipped a state or anything like that, folks. Technically Virginia, because Youngkin. But the point is, Youngkin was an anomaly. So, no, it didn't look good for the Republicans. But I'm interested in, second-day analysis I'm hearing and the polls. Always raise an eyebrow to the polls, right? And now the polls are, or they're trying to tell us what the polls are saying is that Trump is getting blamed for the economy. And the prices aren't coming down fast enough. And I just got to say, really? Give me a break, folks. We had 4 years of hyperinflation, 9%. The man's been in office for 9 months, and you really think you can reverse 4 years of horrible direction? So try to go a little deeper on that. Prices do still stink. Some have come down. Yes, gas is down. Eggs are down. Right? A lot of things are down. And they're down because of the policies. They went up in that hyperinflation, and they shot up 9% because the policies were horrible and didn't make sense. Biden, or the Biden-esque people, not Biden. I'm not, look, we both know, we all know Biden wasn't on top of all this. But those who had control of the Oval at the time decided to push the green stuff. All right, the Inflation Reduction Act was, by his admission, just the Green New Deal, relabeled, repackaged. And we saw all kinds of push and money spent on the green. You know the drill on all this. So the bottom line on that is that we ended up with 4 years of policy and behavior and taxes and stuff that just caused everything to go sky high. So you got to look at other policies this administration implementing and trying to implement. And we have a major case in front of the Supreme Court. I don't know if that's really a word to use, case, right? It's not a case, but a challenge to the use of tariffs. And we have billions of dollars the country did not possess a short time ago, now in our coffers because of the tariffs. And we also have incredible leverage because of those tariffs that has, can be, be, for the most part, the reason behind a lot of peace deals being done. So let's get a perspective with some of this stuff. New York had, I think it is, double check me, 508-871-7000, someone can, I think the highest voter turnout since like the 1960s. Very high voter turnout. And Mandami, he didn't have this over, he got about 50%, and the other divided between Cuomo and Curtis. And Eric Adams was on there too, by the way. There was actually, I think there were several people on it that got on the thing, on the ballot, but they were inconsequential in the calculus of the election. But he doesn't have this overwhelming mandate, folks. Let's get that straight. And then his speech, I'm not sure if mouthing off to and attacking the president of the United States on election night's the smartest move either. And Trump put out on Truth Social, so it begins now. So there's some questions about that. Because going into this, we had Trump saying, I'm not sure that I can send a lot of money to New York if this is going on. So let's start right there, right? Because we have politics meets the principles and the personality. Voters did make history. Think about it. And I'm not sure, do we have to keep saying Democratic socialist? Can't we just say socialist who's the Democratic candidate? Isn't that a little more accurate? An Ugandan-born immigrant. And I know there's some static and talk about members of Congress, and I think even from the president. Should non-American born people be able to hold offices above a certain level? You can't president, we know that. Why can members of Congress? Don't we have 3 equal branches? Separate but equal branches. So if the president cannot be not born outside the U.S., why can members of Congress, if it's an equal branch of government, meaning they are deciding the laws, they're very powerful, very influential, which means foreign entities can place people into our government. It's bottom line, it's the simplest form of saying it, but it's true, right? So should we look at that? Should having to be American born for the presidency apply to the other branches of government? I think that's a legitimate question and discussion to have, and I think it should be debated, examined, and implemented if we find it makes sense. Because if we don't have it for members of Congress and even the judiciary, why do we have it for the president? Founding fathers saw it was necessary. So this Ugandan-born immigrant, an outspoken progressive, now mayor-elect of the nation's largest city, I think, 54 days? He gets sworn in January. And in his very first moments after his victory yesterday, he didn't just thank supporters. He fired that direct shot at Pennsylvania Avenue. I'm not sure that was the smartest thing to do. And Mandami looked straight into the camera and said, Donald Trump, since I know you're watching, turn the volume up. That's rude. He went on to proclaim New York City as a city of immigrants, built by immigrants, powered by immigrants, and now led by one, unquote. Now, and I've talked about verbiage and how we need to be particular in our verbiage when we talk about these things. Because it is, actually the country is based on explorers and settlers, but grew enriched and became what it is with immigrants. And this is where I've told you over and over again, the Orwellian process is they kept using the verbiage and trying to make you equate the word immigrant with illegal alien. Not that that's what he's talking about, but just city of immigrants. And it is a city of immigrants. The country is. How most of us talking and most of you listening right now are probably the product of immigrants. And unless, your heritage is Mexican or Native American or Native Canadian, et cetera, if your family wasn't spawned from North American continent, your family came here at some time. So it is. And he says now it's led by one. That's true. Now, those few lines, my friends, the political stage for 2026 just got a whole lot louder. Because this isn't just about a mayor and a president. This is about a constitutional test of power, the balance between Washington and the cities, and what happens when the rule of law collides with raw political emotion. And let's remember, President Trump warned for weeks that if Mamdani won, he might cut off federal funds to New York. He even said, it's highly unlikely that I'll be contributing federal funds in other than minimal required, unquote there. We're going to talk about that a little bit. It's not subtle. That was not some, but Trump's really known for being subtle, right? It was a warning shot. And the one that has a real implication for billions in federal money that flow into New York for infrastructure, housing, public safety. So here's the question we need to ask. Can any president, lawfully withhold funds simply because he doesn't like who the voters chose? Broad answer to that, the Constitution says no. But federal law says those dollars are allocated by Congress, not by the whim of the White House. But it goes both ways. If Trump could cut off cities for being too progressive, then what's to stop future Democratic presidents from cutting off conservative states because they won't enforce gun control or abortion mandates? But we have to take our first break here on the Wednesday edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show on AM 830 WCRN 508-871-7000 to join the conversation. We'll be back in 2 and 10, folks.
Step into the magic of...
All right, folks, welcome back here to the second segment of the Wednesday edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show in AM 830 WCRN. And again, you can join the conversation at 508-871-7000. That's 508-871-7000. Hey, and our text line is running at 617-297-8388. You can text that like you would anyone else. It appears on the screen right here in the studio as I broadcast from the Cameo studios. Of course, you can join us on the stream on Facebook, X, Twitch TV, LinkedIn profile, and even Rumble. Just to recap, Zohan Mamdani, 34-year-old Democratic socialist, or should we say socialist, who is the Democratic candidate and naturalized citizen, was elected mayor of New York. He is mayor-elect right now, folks. He'll be sworn in January 1st. He used the victory speech to challenge President Trump, telling him to turn up the volume. Mr. Trump had publicly endorsed Andrew Cuomo, is what the papers are saying today. But I watched President Trump say he didn't really endorse Cuomo. It was a very backhanded thing. He said, if it's between a communist and a bad Democrat, I'll take the bad Democrat. That's not a hell of an endorsement. And I'm not sure Cuomo wanted a resounding endorsement from Trump anyway. This was actually pretty brilliant, whether intentional or unintentional, because it kind of threw it behind Cuomo without embracing Cuomo. You get what I'm saying here. And of course, he's gone so far as to label Mamdani as a communist and threatened to withhold federal funds or otherwise punish the city if he prevailed. Well, he's prevailed. The result immediately raised questions about whether and how the federal government could lawfully withhold or target funds and set the stage for an extended political clash between a mayor who frames his win as a defense of immigrants and local sovereignty and a president who has made punishing democratic cities. And again, I don't agree with that comment from the newspapers. He hasn't. He's doing what's needed to be done. But federal funding is not discretionary political spoils. So Congress allocates the money. It does go up, but there are levers and situations where the president can help out a city more than not necessarily really take funding away that's been allocated by Congress, though. 508-871-7000 to join the conversation. Let's jump to the phones. Mark's waiting patiently. Hey, Mark, what say you?
You remember way back in the Bronze Age when you went to school that they used to teach the kids about American history. Remember that?
They used to at one time, absolutely.
Yeah, they tell them about the Battle of the what was it? The
Battle of the
Battle
Bulge.
of the. No, not that one. The other one with Custer.
Okay,
The Battle of the
Little
Big Horn. The Battle of the Little Horn or the Big Horn or whatever. And they tell you about Custer and how he got massacred, and you know he picked with the wrong group of Indians. Is that was his mistake. He went against the Sioux Nation, and they had a contingency with the Sioux who joined in with the Sioux. They were called the Cheyennes, and they had what they called the Cheyennes dog soldiers. And I'll put it to you this way. You didn't want to be in the U.S. Cavalry and be confronted by a group of very angry Cheyenne dog soldiers. No, you don't want to do that. So that being said, you're going to have a battle of the Little Bighorn brewing. I could see it coming. Between Donald Trump and this guy Mangiacotti, they're gonna go to battle with each other. They're gonna go to war.
I agree. I think they're in war. It's already started, right? The shots were fired across the bow.
Wait till he gets inaugurated, and he gets the real reins of power. I mean, Mangiacotti. What all he's doing now, he's just playing around. Once he gets inaugurated, whatever that day is in January
1st.
January 1st, he's going to pull all the stops. You ain't seen nothing yet from this guy.
Mark, can I ask you a couple questions? Mangiacotti has threatened to arrest Benjamin Netanyahu if he steps foot on American soil. Do you think it has the cojones to do that?
Yes, I do.
Do you think he can do that?
He's capable of anything.
Well, let's put it this way. He can attempt to, but he can't because Netanyahu has diplomatic immunity, would have Secret Service as well as Israeli security. So it's impractical. He's not going to be able to do it. I mean, he may try to do it, but he would end up on the wrong end of the cuffs.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Between him and Trump, it's going to come down. They're going to have a showdown, and it's going to be a battle royale between them. It's going to be the power of the federal government versus the power of the local government, and they're going to have a showdown.
One more question. Are you totally confident that Mangiacotti will be sworn in? Do you think that he will make it to the second as in the United States? And I say this for two reasons. A, I always ask, will they make it? But B, there's already been talk about his status as a citizen and being stripped. Do you think that could happen, or that will even go that low?
I'll give you my answer.
Or do you think he'll be sworn in January 1st? No question.
Do you want my answer?
I do.
Okay, my answer is there are very powerful international, financial, and corporate people all over the world. I'm talking globalists who are behind this guy, and they've been behind this guy. They've been maybe grooming this guy for a decade, and they are not in any way, shape, if they're going to protect this guy and they're going to get him over the finish line. They have too much time and money invested not for that to happen. Yes,
Okay.
I think he will be inaugurated.
All right. Thank you for the call, Mark. Always fantastic call. Appreciate it. All right, folks, 508-871-7000 to join the conversation. That's 508-871-7000. Lines are open and available. Don't forget the text line, of course, 617-297-8388, 617-297-8388, like anyone else that appears here on the screen in the studio. We do stream the show. I mean, you can always watch and listen to it, of course, at WCN Radio or on the TuneIn app, or join me here in the studio on Facebook, X, Twitch TV, LinkedIn profile, and Rumble as well, and we're turned into a podcast. So will he, what do you think? Do you think some bizarre thing can happen between now and January 1st? And to Mark's point, I agree. I'm not so sure that Zohan decided this was going to happen, or some people decided for him that he was going to happen, because we know that happens all the time. Look at Kamala Harris. She was set on that path by other people. So you do have a lot of people who may want him in there for their reasons. But New York is also the capital of capital. And next to London, which is, quite frankly, losing its position on the global landscape, by the way, there is so much business in all aspects, right? Entertainment, financing, done out of New York. And it has a big concentration of not just millionaires, but billionaires. And they might not be happy with this. Sure, they're moving. And how do we know? I mean, we know people are moving out of New York in droves because we can look at the number of licenses that have been switched to other countries. One of the other key indicators that we're seeing in New York dropping an incredible amount of population. Let's just look to the school systems, right? Where they've gone from 1.1 million students enrolled to 800,000. That's a 300,000 drop in the school enrollment. Sure, some of that might be to alternative education that we're not counting. It can also be a decrease in the birth population. There's a lot of other little factors, but that's also a big indication that those students are now being educated in other states. And all the other factors that we add into it show us that there has been a lot of people moving out of New York. And there's plenty of reason for wealthy people to keep moving out, which is, of course, going to leave. Middle class, which is disappearing, and people who would be in the lower economic stratus. And I think a lot of these people, I mean, I think he really won with this BS promises of all this free stuff, right? I mean, there are far more, I don't want to go down that road about comparisons to Germany 1930s, but that would be an interesting conversation to have. But let's talk about this framed libertarian, constitutionalist, communist. See, federal funding is not discretionary, as I said. So New York relies on a meaningful federal support. Now, it's a single-digit % of its budget, but that translates to billions in actual dollars. Their budget's so huge that the small percentage of federal funds they get is still billions of dollars. So threats to cut funds are leveraged with real consequences for the services there, but lawful limits do matter. Federal funding is established by Congress. There are some areas that the president, and again, when I always hate to, when I'm talking about something like this, to refer to it as Trump, because it's not Trump. It's the office that is the power, not the person, right? We understand that. The person doesn't have the power. They temporarily do. They're steward of the power, but they don't have the power. The power is infused into the office that they only get to hold for a certain amount of time. And we got the 3 equal branches. So whatever is done to try to limit Trump, remember, it limits all presidents, future presidents. And now that the Supreme Court is looking at this tariff situation, I think they got to weigh that too. Because any decision that we have come down, and we're going to get it, we're not going to have to wait till June like we do, But June is Supreme Court season for us, right? A lot of us in politics, we look forward to June because we get all the Supreme Court cases get put out, and it has consequences. We're going to hear about this tariff thing much quicker because they took it on an emergency basis. So we're going to hear about it much quicker. But remember, anything that is done to that office or they try to do to Trump goes on. And all these suits because now you have judges and politicians trying to co-presidency by constantly bringing these suits. It has long-lasting implications to future presidents. Folks, we got to take our mid-show break here on the Wednesday edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show. And AM 830 WCRN 508-871-7000 to join the conversation. I encourage you to jump on in. 508-871-7000. Back in 2 minutes and 2 seconds, folks. Stick with us. All right, folks, welcome back here to the second half of the Wednesday edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show here on AM 830 WCRN. 508-871-7000 to join the conversation. That's 508-871-7000 for the remainder of the time that we have together, or just text me 617-297-8388. And don't forget, hey, the show is turned into a podcast. So if you go to like Spotify or Google Play or Podbean, you can subscribe, and when I get off the air and it's turned into the podcast, it will notify you, download it like all podcasts work, and you can always listen later. So, hey, check it out. Again, Spotify or Podbean. 508-871-7000. Let me go to the phones. Ken's waiting patiently. Hey, Ken, what say you?
Hello, Joe. Well, we got a lot to analyze, don't we?
Oh yeah, we've got the Virginia situation, we've got the New Jersey situation, of course, Mandami going on, Prop 50 in California, a lot of stuff.
Well, the Prop 50, yeah, we knew that California's lost. Forget it. Virginia, hey, they've been taking a big hit as far as employment, federal government. So are we surprised now? Mamdani, who I now call Hamas Dami. I will call him that from now on. Hamas Dami. Just get used to it. He impacted New Jersey also, in my opinion.
Yeah.
One of the interesting things that I found is at noon watching the news is, did you catch he has a staff now reporting to him? So like a senior staff underneath him. Did you catch
I know that he's using that woman as the transition person, but I really didn't catch his staff. Why? This is going to be interesting. Tell me about that.
Every single person is a woman. You get the picture?
Okay.
That's what the Marxists have been pushing for all along, and particularly the American Marxists. Everything is about advancing the next feminist revolution, if you want to call it that. And they've infiltrated everything, particularly everything on the left. And that's sending a very clear message, because what the battle is over as far as these elections, whether they be national or state level, particularly blue states and areas, it's over the millennials and the Gen Z. And when you compare what their type of voting just in the past year, it's swinging wildly. That's part of the reason why Charlie Kirk was killed.
Well, wait a minute. Bring that back. Just do that one more time. The leap you just made to Charlie is because of
because Charlie was succeeding.
Yeah. I think there's also, because you're up on this stuff. What do you think about the connection between Charlie and his change on his position on Israel and Netanyahu?
He didn't change. That was BS.
No, he did change. Go look at his original stuff about it, and then look at his stuff for the last few months of his life. He even said on one of his things, let me be careful how I say this. And then he was coming off of full support. So there was absolutely a change in his take on Israel and Netanyahu. That's absolutely. You can go watch it, Ken. You can watch it 6 months ago watch him 2 months ago. And he even says, I got to be careful about how I word this.
Because he was dealing with the youth who were very volatile on the issue. I know, I deal with them myself, a son in particular.
No question about that. But that doesn't take away the fact that he actually was changing how he viewed Israel.
He was still strongly attached to Israel. It's just he had to be careful.
Of course, but he did change his support. Now, he's also was realistic in the fact that Israel is an ally, a very strong ally of the United States. And our cooperation between intelligence, Mossad, and our agencies is invaluable to us. Do you really think we have the same kind of boots on the ground intel in the Middle East that Israel has?
Well,
I mean, we've had to depend on Israel for a very long time for our intelligence in that region.
Sure, because you
think the kid from Kansas is going to mix in with Al Qaeda very easily?
No, that's true. But I think much of the social media exaggerates the extent to which he may have modified his position. I think that in the core,
but there was modification. You acknowledge that
in a small manner.
Well, it was there.
So I think all of the conspiracy stuff related to his
what is all this conspiracy stuff? Because I catch things. I wish I had the time, folks, but I get these small snippets of Candace Owens and stuff, making these veiled comments, and they're talking. And then I caught something the other day, someone saying, 8 days before Charlie Kirk, somebody in Europe was Googling the address where the rifle was found. And I'm saying, wait a minute, what is the conspiracy that this kid Robinson did not do this? Or is he a Lee Harvey Oswald type situation? What is the conspiracy theory that's being floated? Or do we have multiple things going on?
It's all for the clicks, Joe. It's not real. I mean, it's such an easy story. Inside of 3 to 4 days, you had to figure it out. All right, it's obviously Robinson, and the bullet happened to go right into Charlie's spine and just blew his upper body up. There's no back coming here, there. It's one of the easiest cases of assassination.
Oh, wait a minute. Ken, you didn't see the one that the bullet was really in the lavalier mic on his shirt?
Yeah,
I saw that clip. That was interesting.
Yeah, I'm not wasting my time.
Yeah. So, but to what end? So, I mean, are they trying to say this? But again, conspiracy theories. Let's look at. Right now, I have no reason not to believe it's Robinson. We have the trial going on, and we'll take it from there. What can I say?
And if you want to know what really drove Robinson, just look at his friend. That's the thing I've explored a little bit. Is that guy was drugs, alcohol, everything.
The furry boyfriend or boyfriend into furries or whatever.
His mind was mush.
Yeah,
and that influenced the guy who was otherwise pretty straight-laced and was protecting his friend. That's one of the reasons why he carried out the deed. Got it.
Okay. Very good. Very good. Do you think that Mandami's election, first of all, how are the Republicans? I mean, are the Republicans going to make this guy the face of the Democratic Party? And is this because, actually, I don't know. Ken, you might know. Out in Wisconsin, they're the Somalian that looks like I am the captain now guy. Did he win?
I don't believe so, because I thought I saw some names up, and I thought he lost.
Okay, good. Yeah. I saw Ilad Omar talking about him and making reference to him looking like that guy, and she even did the quote and everything. And she goes, when I first saw him, I thought he was very sexy, malnutritioned. I'm thinking, is that a joke or what?
Yeah. Did you catch the lieutenant governor from Virginia now elected?
No. Tell us.
That's a Hamasami look-alike or act-alike. It's a radical Muslim.
Okay. Well, look, guys, there's actually, if you don't think that that's all by design and then, that all of a sudden that all these Muslims, like the Irish did in Boston, saying, hey, and they are, but they have another, they're not looking to assimilate. They are looking to change our government and to change our country from within. And the Quran even allows them to lie, it encourages them to lie in order to get into these positions and then get us to a point where everybody, I mean, just listen to them. Like everything else, right? They say, when politicians tell you things and the Democrats tell you things, and now if these Muslims tell you things that they're going to bring, the religion to every home and bring it to the, they mean it, they believe it, and they intend to do it. So believe them when they tell you that.
And Joe, it was told to us and promised to us 17 years ago.
Yep.
By the then elected president that he wanted to fundamentally transform the greatest nation in the world. Now, he didn't say greatest nation in the world. He wanted to fundamentally transform America because he hated it, or at least what it had been in the past. And where did he learn that from? His father.
You mean
Just
when he
like
was in Uganda?
Just like Hamasdami. No, I'm saying Obama's father.
Yeah.
Taught him the same thing. Pretty much.
That's what I'm saying. I agree. So did Mandami's. What do you think Mandami's father is? All right, we're against final thought, Ken?
No, we have plenty more to talk about in the future.
That's right. All right. Thank you, Ken. Always appreciate it. Great call. All right, folks, 508-871-7000 to join the conversation. That's 508-871-7000. We've got a few minutes of this segment and the last segment to go to. I do want to switch gears just a little bit, slightly here, because and I'm sure you've seen this, but I was not able to do the show yesterday and the other day. And so, look, an aide to our governor, Maura Healey, was in, and I'm sure you got this, but in case you didn't, was arrested on felony drug trafficking and firearm charges after authorities say several packages containing large quantities of cocaine were delivered to a state office building where he worked. This is crazy. So out in the Springfield area, the governor has offices. Again, it's not necessarily, it's more here. The governor always has offices throughout the state. And that's just part of the office, right? But an administration aide in a very senior role was involved in this large-scale drug trafficking. It raises a lot of major questions, right, about how does that happen? What is the internal vetting? Again, is this a situation where we're not so concerned about where did you go to school? What have you done for work? What did you accomplish in those roles? What is your experience? What's your leadership style, management style? Or is it, you look good because you have the right color skin or you're the right sexuality or whatever the case is? Yes, DEI. So this incident underscores the rule of law issue. When someone within government appears to violate the law in such a serious way, is not the public trust and institutional integrity at stake in a big, big way? We can talk a little bit more about this, but we're going to have to take a third and final break here on the Wednesday edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show on AM 830 WCRN. I do want to drilling down on this a little bit, and I'm looking for people who have some input on that. So, cocaine in the governor's office. 508-871-7000. Back in 2 and 10, folks. Stick with us. All right, folks. Welcome back here to fourth and final segment on the Wednesday edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show. Mighty Movers. That's Pat. Good guy. Used him myself. The stations used him. They do a great job all over the place, big or small. Check it out, Mighty Movers. All right, 508-871-7000 to join the conversation. Lines open and available. We have our time left for this. And so Governor Healey's top aide and was arrested. This is last week, connection with this major cocaine trafficking operation. And had it delivered to the building where the governor's office is, but not just to the building, but to the suite number that's the governor's. And authorities have been watching all this, right? So the aide had a long-standing tie to individuals who have been under investigation for narcotics distribution. And a lot of times this is how things happen. Look at that whole big NBA and gambling thing. Didn't start off investigating the stars, right? The athletes. It actually was an organized crime investigation, but followed the evidence, followed the facts, and that's where it ended up. So authorities are investigating the narcotics distribution. And lo and behold, the part of their distribution is to an aide of Maura Healey, Governor Healey, and had the cojones to have it delivered to her office in Springfield. So the arrest has raised questions about the vetting procedure and oversight within Haley's administration. Look, whenever you have a one-party state like Massachusetts, New York, D.C. and stuff, you're always going to have, this is just my take, observation, many, many years, several decades of being in politics and doing political talk. Is this always corruption in government because power corrupts? It just does. It's like somebody who embezzles. They don't think, oh, I'm going to embezzle a couple $1 million. They find themselves in a situation, and they may have access to petty cash, so they may be able to do, get them to write the clear coat check for the car sales to a different account, whatever it is. And when the world doesn't collapse, it's harder to replace that money. They may start out that way. It's just corruption exists where power exists. So they were investigating the whole criminal element and find out that there's large amounts of cocaine being sent to the governor's office. So what is the vetting procedure on this? And not just the vetting, right? You do have to vet. And that's why a lot of people, more conservative people, have such a problem with the DEI hires, because you're putting things that don't really matter in the performance and ability of that job or that position as the paramount thing, not the actual ability to do the job. But not just in vetting, folks. The vetting has to be well done and in depth. Several interviews, background checks. Actually, my company, I think everybody that listens knows that I own a private investigation agency. We have done countless background investigations and pre-employment. We used to do all the pre-employment screening for a certain jewelry chain. I mean, they're putting these people in charge of and responsible for millions of dollars of jewelry every shift, right? But when you do this, you got to actually talk to the people they list, and then you have to talk to the people they don't list too, by the way. So not just the vetting procedure, but the oversight, the monitoring, the balances and checks within it. And when you have a one-party state and you're never going to be challenged, the media goes along and never is going to do their job and investigate and ask tough questions, what do you think is eventually going to happen? Now, of course, Republican gubernatorial candidates will be pressing Haley to explain whether her office ignored maybe some red flags during the hiring process. Did you gloss over some stuff in the hiring process? The Haley administration has issued a brief statement expressing shock, unbelievable shock, and vow, of course, for full cooperation with the law enforcement, but hasn't answered any questions about potential prior warnings at all. So Haley's clean government, those watching know I'm doing air quotes, imagine, well, let's look at the contrast sharply with the allegations involving this close aide. How does someone allegedly tied to drug trafficking prior to becoming the aide rise to senior government ranks in the governor's office? Now, do you think that this story and the outrage or do you think there'd even be some outrage if this happened under a Republican administration? I mean, every time something like this happens, can you not help but wonder, could I look at a parallel universe where this was a Republican governor and the news breaks that a senior aide has, and I'm not talking an 8-ball, this was a lot of coke, delivered to the governor's office? What would the media coverage be? You just, right, you have to. You're curious. If we had that ability to look at a parallel universe of this happening. And no one, including state insiders, should be above criminal scrutiny, right? What do we hear? Nobody's above the law. My question to this, why was this aide so comfortable and so confident that he had large amounts of cocaine delivered to the governor? Now, obviously not the governor's office in Pekin. We're out in Springfield, but the governor has multiple offices. That's pretty arrogant. That's a lot of confidence or stupidity. And to think that somehow is okay. I mean, that's amazing to me. That he was that comfortable to use the governor's office for this. So this case, this situation exposes the fragility of public confidence in Beacon Hill's political elite, doesn't it? You have to. GOP candidates, yeah, they're going to seize on the scandal, point to this as arrogance, this one-party rule. And there is a certain amount of, I mean, you look at this, it spotlights a Massachusetts pattern here of the insider politics and weak internal accountability. Look at the lack of explanation and accountability with the stops, right? The mass pike stops and those things there. And then the transportation secretary, the stuff with the energy. And this is the one, our friends over at Mass Fiscal Alliance, right? The one that's kind of absorbed CLT back in the day. Carney over there, and he's been on the show. And I love it when, because he's very good at pointing out when Maura Healey starts talking about energy costs in Massachusetts and got to do everything. And she's literally another politician who forgets the internet's forever. And not that long ago, she was bragging about stopping the pipelines through Massachusetts and stopping that from coming. And then you wonder why our energy costs are through the roof here. Look, the aide described, again, longtime political operative, key member of her inner circle, was arrested for this. So you have to ask, who else knew what was going on and what was happening in that whole time? These charges are distribution, possession with intent to distribute cocaine. That's serious. And the prosecutors say this aide had complete regular communications with these known traffickers for a long time, before becoming an inner circle aide to the governor and being an inner circle aide to the governor. There's more in this story. Maybe we can save it for tomorrow and see how it develops. But before we end today, I want to take a moment and let everyone know that Dr. Larry Fedewa, who our friendship began years ago when he came on my show, and it developed into a friendship. I have been to his home, his horse farm in Virginia. We are both senior fellows with the Frontiers of Freedom Institute, a think tank out of D.C. I know his wife, Teresa, Dollar Kirsten. I know his horses. Well, he passed away recently. He passed away on the 29th, and his birthday is actually October 31st. So Dr. Larry, who was a regular on the Joe Mangiacotti show, and of course, one of the original 4 on the panelists of the weekly report, has left us. And so he's no longer with us, obviously, and his daughter may join us from time to time. So I just want to let everyone know that Dr. Larry has passed on, and I'll probably be going to Virginia shortly to attend the service and funeral. But we will miss him. And like I said, he was a regular here on the Joe Mangiacotti Show. He started several years ago, and I tapped him for his expertise. He was known as the philosopher of politics. He was a very good writer, and I often shared his essays and articles on my blog site. And we used to have him on, I forget what we did, the third week of the month or something like that. But we'll say goodbye to Dr. Larry. He wasn't just a colleague; he was a friend, and I will miss him. And he was a very smart guy and had a great sense of humor. So Dr. Larry has left us. All right, folks, we're gonna have to wrap up the Wednesday edition here of the Joe Mangiacotti Show on AM 830 WCRN. Reminding you, we do turn the show into a podcast, which means we edit it up, take out the commercials, but you can subscribe to the Joe Mangiacotti Show on Spotify, Podbean, Google Play, iHeartRadio, TuneIn, wherever you get your podcasts, you can do that. And don't forget, WCRN has the replay link as well. That's will wrap up the Wednesday edition for me, and I will be back tomorrow afternoon at 1 o'clock, same bat time, same bat channel. So join us then, folks. But for now, it's Joe out. Take care.